How many of you are familiar with the phrase ban the testers? I feel like I'm Palpatine. Like, how many of you know the
tragedy of Darth Plagueis the
testers? Around like Injustice 1, MKX, like Injustice 2, a bunch of top players got invited to go try the game and then give feedback and like, you know, find broken stuff and then let them know. And a bunch of players that got invited in and played and like had early access to a bunch of stuff, then went to a bunch of tournaments and did very well in like the first week, month or 2 or 3 or whatever of the game coming out. So it became like a big thing where people were yelling. They were like, ban the testers. And people said it so much it became tan the besters. And like, you know, there's some stories about people like finding things, like they would lab stuff with their character and then just not mention it. Be like, yeah, I tried them, I didn't see anything crazy. And then they would like try to use it when the game came out. There's even people who were like in there, invited early to play. They were like recording the stuff that they would find so that they could remember it for later or like lab it or like show people. And everybody was like, well, dude, this is not fair. So that became like a big conversation. And I can tell you that I myself had a pretty similar experience even going and trying Killer Instinct. Each season with KI, they had like a bunch of system changes, a bunch of balance changes and stuff. And for season 3, they invited a ton of people to come in and play, break it open, tell us what you think, and like tell us what the problems are. So I was competing in the game and tournament. I was also commentating it. And while doing that, went in and I played my character, Maya, at the time. I was messing with her changes and stuff. And then the way I started playing, like my game plan, was really degenerate. And I basically found a play pattern, which was like jump in the air and like throw projectiles at my opponent. And it's really hard to contest, and then land and then throw an unblockable at them and then do like a grounded combo into a meaty that gives me one of the 2 pips back into another button, into an unblockable. I just showed them, like, watch me play this. What do you guys think about this? And they're like, yeah, that's not chill, but we have an idea about how to make that probably not as gross. And like, we can probably make that a little bit better. So they made it so that when you hit with the dagger toss that was unblockable, it would pop your opponent up in the air, which gave you a juggle. And air juggles were weaker than like grounded juggles for damage. You're getting worse damage and like the trade-off is better, and like that makes sense. And then like she ended up getting like better air juggles anyway. So then it like ended up making the character not as degenerate and more interesting. Cool. So that was my experience. Meanwhile, at the very same test, there was people who were not playing their characters, or they would lab their characters and then they would be like, all right, cool. Not most, like I would say 95% of people were there with good intentions and stuff, but there were some people who like went and tried their characters and then were not doing anything cheap or too powerful they found, because their intention was to not get it seen and hope that it would slip through the cracks so that they could then later use it in tournament and like win with it. Sounds like classic SoCal FGC. None of the people there besides me were from SoCal, and everybody who saved all their tech was from the East Coast. I'll just start there with that accusation. That's a really random, funny accusation. But I was like, all right, I'm gonna just tell them exactly what's going on and like what's wrong with what I'm doing. So then I showed them they nerfed my character, which I totally was in agreement with. Some other people were like holding some stuff, and like, yeah, I mean, it ended up making the game worse because of it, right? Catch us up to the modern era. Street Fighter 6 is on the way. They ran a beta 6 to 8 months before release or whatever, and it got cracked. When it shut down, they were then able to like play it offline with training mode with the 8 characters that were in the beta. And what ended up happening is people for like 6 months before release, people were able to play the game. And I think when it came to the crack for Street Fighter, it was an interesting dilemma, because people who were going to be tournament players who are good at the game mostly were still really good at Street Fighter 5. A lot of the top players like still needed to play in tournaments at the tail end of Street Fighter 5, like if you were qualified for Capcom Cup. But a lot of the people who were out, if you didn't have obligations and you're a top player, why wouldn't you grind the crack, basically, right? Besides like the moral objective. I knew a lot of people were playing that crack. In fact, people were trying to offer me crack and I said no. And the reason I didn't want to play the crack basically is not even like the moral obligation to it. I don't want to play like something like that serious if it's not out. I can't play it with other humans like openly. There's no like matchmaking and stuff. Also, I don't really care to play like a crack or like an early build. Like, it's not for me. I knew a lot of people who played it, and I knew a lot of people who act like they didn't play it even though they played it a lot. And I knew a lot of people who played it, and then the week 1 of the game were like Thanos. Like, you'd run into them and they would just have the most insane labbed polished setups, and then you'd be like, what the fuck? I knew top players who played it. I knew top players who didn't play it. It was a huge thing. The same thing happened for Tekken, and the same thing happened for Fatal Fury. Like, the betas got cracked. Yeah, I mean, I guess that also happened in Street Fighter 5, but I know people who played early for those games as well. And like, that's obviously different than like people inviting you in to play, but that was a big thing. Fast forward to the release of Street Fighter 6. When Street Fighter 6 came out, I got offered a review code for the game, And the review code got sent to me like May 25th, 6th or something like that, which is like a week before the game came out on June 2nd, which was during combo breaker time. So by accepting a review code that I couldn't play until like 2 days before the game came out, I forfeited my right to enter tournaments on the CPT for the first year of the game. That was the rule. Like if you took a review code, you couldn't participate in any CPT events. Meanwhile, there was people who have been playing it for 6 months already who are not banned. You know, the people who played on the crack, it was well known who it was. They had discords where they were matchmaking and stuff, and like people were driving out and like playing offline. Like people knew who was playing it. So fast forward to now. 2XKO let people go in and try the game a couple years before it came out. And then they've done alpha labs and like a few other tests since then. Like, you know, they've asked me to come into the office and play the game maybe like twice outside of the alpha labs or something. And it was like to test changes that they made or whatever and go in. The thing for me, I knew the minute I tried the game early the first time, I would not enter any early brackets personally. My goal when I play the game early is to play my character, find stuff that seems either janky, like it doesn't feel good to play, or too powerful. And I'm like, hey, are you guys cool with what they're doing here? That's the first goal. And the second goal for me is to learn the game, the characters, and the system so that when it comes out, I can teach people or talk about it and like be like, yeah, look at how cool this is. This is what's going on. Like, this is what you should know about the game or the system or the characters or whatever, right? Every time I ever went in, everything changed from build to build. It was not like unmitigated access to the game for months or weeks or whatever. But like, I don't know. I can only speak from my motivation, right? What I'm trying to do with early footage. I was interested in entering early 2XKO brackets, but like I didn't want to enter any for a while. And I still haven't entered anything besides like a local because I didn't want anybody to be mad. What other people are trying to do with early time to the game, that is the line I'm concerned about. So that brings us to today's discussion about ban the testers, because the competitive integrity of 2XKO is a joke. All these players shamelessly talking about how much they knew about stuff behind the scenes and how much early access they have had to characters and stuff is genuinely unbelievable. I can say with certainty, the only thing that I've played that you guys have not played is literally just me going in and playing Caitlyn. Punk had this tweet about it, right? Where he's like, all the top players got too much stuff. And to his point, for Street Fighter, they let people come in and play stuff early. Early footage of like Terry or early footage of the season 1 and some of the season 2 characters. I got invited to the Capcom office to play for like an hour and then like capture some footage and give some impressions of the characters. So they did that with like a few content creators, but they didn't invite any pro players. For like this case, I think that's like the concern and like where people are like trying to aim and shoot is the blurred lines between inviting content creators to the events to like try and get more footage and get hype and get people interested in like what you're doing versus pro players getting early advantage and having access to stuff. The way this early test went, I think has like a few problems. I think for starters, if they want to kill all of the concerns people have about people having early access and like pros and stuff, they could just not allow pros, or they could not allow anybody to go in and play and just like release the character when the character comes out. Those are options to deal with that. Or it could be like, if you go in and try the character, you're not allowed to compete for like a certain amount of time after the patch comes out. And I would assume if you did that, most of pro players would decline going in. They would have tournaments and events that would line up over it, and so they would not go. That's like a way they could do it. Or they could like make the event a streamed event so that everybody has access to the information. Yeah, I think a PBE would be sick too. Like, hey, we're thinking about trying all these changes, come try all this stuff and like break our game. Because that's what they want. They also like made some posts about the test. And like, basically, I get this sense this was supposed to just be like a chill vibes, cool event. This one was like pretty short, but they're like, yeah, we're taking your feedback. How to make it so that people don't feel like the people who go have like some crazy competitive advantage that's like gross. And like, you're like, dude, I'm going to lose all the first tournaments to Diaphone's Caitlyn. Or how to make the reveal be fun to people. Yes, they were walking around, and if anybody was like not playing Caitlyn, they're like, yo, what are you doing? What's your problem here? Like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, I was playing Caitlyn, and then I did something with my character and it didn't work, and I wanted to see what did work. And they're like, this works, now stop that. Put Caitlyn on the screen. Even when we went in, they didn't give us the full patch notes. You know what they posted yesterday? They gave us a slide that was shorter than this. The biggest problem to me with this thing is, one, I don't think that the time and access was that big. Because I can tell you, I think Leffen got owned going to this event. I don't like defending Leffen. He's a fucking goober and he's real easy to make fun of. But I was thinking about like what the advantage that he would get going to this is, right? This dude flew 2 days across the planet. Like, he flew to LA from Sweden. He got to play Caitlyn for like 2 or 3 hours. And he, in the very beginning, the first thing he said was, yo, can you guys release the patch notes like ASAP so that people don't think I have an advantage coming here? He's like, I know you want to wait until whatever, but like Frosty's is right there. I don't want people to think I'm gonna have like a big advantage by saying this. Like, can you just release this shit? And they were like, yeah, we'll release it. I think they were planning to release it slightly later, and they released it earlier. He played for like 2 or 3 hours, and then he flew across the planet. And by the time his ass got home and is not jet lagged, the patch came out and the Caitlyn trailer came out. He lost like 2.5 days to basically know the information at almost the same speed as if he had not gone there. It's like almost in parity. If he does well at Frosty, people are gonna be like, this guy knew information, or you know what I mean? Like, he got owned. I think like him going was a net loss for him. The thing about this event that I think is unfortunate is like we went and got to play Caitlyn early, and that was really fun. And then the trailer came out, and I'm like, yeah, guys, there's Caitlyn. I can't tell you anything about her. That's the biggest problem to me with this. Like, I think if they want to do previews about this more, I think they should figure out what they want to do with pro players, and then also figure out the timing of when people are allowed to speak about things. If I have footage, I can't share it. And if I have information about Caitlyn, I can't share it until later, which means that her release trailer, I have to be like, oh, I wonder how that works, knowing exactly how that works. What happens is I'm like, hey, I'm not going to tell you guys what happens. And they're like, oh, well, Diaphone already told us this. And I'm like, I don't know what he said or hasn't said, so I can't tell you. You know, like, well, Rufelmonger mentioned this, and I'm like, I don't know what he posted or what he said or didn't say, so like I can't fact check that, so I'm not allowed to say more. You know what I mean? Because like with the other characters, like people would say things that were maybe not supposed to be out already, and I'd be like, well, that's something I talked to them about, and I think that will change for the future. If you're wondering what my feedback has been in the versions of the games that I played, I can tell you the exact feedback I gave them in the build before the live build now. My exact feedback was to nerf Echo. I look at like what feels good to play, what doesn't feel good to play, like game feel, not like it's too strong, it's too weak, but like things that feel good to you and feel bad and why. And then things that feel like they could be maybe way too strong of my own characters. I try not to be like, this other character is just busted and they gotta kill this guy. Like, I try to be like, hey, of what I'm doing, this stuff seems pretty crazy. What do you think? This is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is my concerns. But you just want to find people who will give you real feedback, not hide anything, and are willing to be collaborative. Sometimes when you go in and try stuff, you have feelings about things and then someone else feels a completely different way. That's okay. You can't be like, well, you're wrong and I'm right and you guys should change the game. You gotta be like, fair enough. Like, if you feel that way, how come you feel that way? Why is my experience different than yours? What's going on? That's how this stuff goes. Even like Caitlyn, if the early impression of people who tried her was that she was broken or that she was bad, they could be right or wrong, and there's no way for them to know until they've had weeks of access to the character, right? Or maybe even more. Remember like when Ed came out, how long it took for people to realize how good he was? Or like, yeah, Marvel 3 came out. Early Ultimate, everybody thought Wesker was broken, and he is whatever in that game. He's very mid. He also is only good right now. In 7 years, he'll be mid for sure. I mean, remember the balance patch came out, K7, he said he was top 6 or some shit, top 7. Like, I mean, you know, we all make mistakes. And the past has shown us that some people are really useful and nice and great about testing things, and some people are evildoers. In every early testing that I have seen for fighting games, there have been evildoers. You got to put some like guardrails on and like be careful about who you invite in, because you will get people that are nefarious if you're not careful. Great question. Why the need for all these pro players when they have high-level fighting game players on their dev team already, which is kind of their whole thing? So I've been thinking about that question lately too. Same thing with NRS. Like, why would NRS need other people to come in? Why do these games need people to come in if they already have people on their dev team who are capable players? The first thing is, if you have like 4 people on your team and they're like the sweats and they're like playing the characters, having like 20 people come in, you're 5xing the amount of sweats that have access to the character. And like people's brains and like the way you come up with stuff, that you will find and see things that are different than them. The other thing is that the way they play the game is not how we play the game. And the same thing came up when I was talking about an article that Mortdog posted a long time ago. The game dev's dilemma on being highly ranked as a dev. This is a great read. I read this on stream when this came out. The expectation of a dev to be highly ranked in their own game is not a worthwhile effort for creating a better game. Skill issue? No, stop typing and listen for a minute. He talks about becoming challenger, like the highest rank in TFT, the time commitment he put in to do that while doing his job, like live balance and game direction and like working on sets and like all these other things, right? To be rank 1 on the leaderboard, they need to play a lot in the current version of the game and use the best stuff in the game over and over and over and over. Even the sweats on their team, that's not their job. Their job is to work on the game. And part of working on the game is casting a wide net on their own play experiences and like They have to try all the characters in the game, like all the teams in the game, all the fuses in the game, get a holistic overview of all of the stuff that their game is capable of doing and like what it feels like and what it's like to play all these things. They can't just log into the office and Apology Man can't be like, I am playing Jinx Echo every day and sweating and just only playing my main team. They need him to test all the upcoming characters, right? Like Nerd Josh just tweeted like he was one of the people on Caitlyn as an example, but like if he's playing Caitlyn every day, he can't just like log in and play his main team. It's not his job. His job is to play and try and like work on and balance and iterate on all of the upcoming stuff while also keeping fresh on what is the current powerful things in the game and then making changes or adaptations on that. So you just don't have the capability to do both. If you only sweat and only play the best stuff and never try new things, you don't get like a picture of like what the other characters are capable of, what their strengths and weaknesses are, what it feels like to play those teams. What if the devs are just in there playing Yasuo Echo, Yasuo Ahri, you know, Echo Teemo, and none of them are playing Braum or Blitzcrank or like any of these other characters that people want buffs for. And they're like, what should we buff about Braum and Blitzcrank? And they're like, I don't play those characters, who cares? The way you make changes to the weaker characters is you need to play them and figure out what they actually need. I don't know if you fought GC Yoshi at all, who was like challenger when I last saw him, when he's like in the top 100 or pretty close. He was playing only sidekick Blitzcrank Teemo with Blitzcrank on point. Do you think if he was sweating and like trying to play for real that would be his team? Maybe, he's a fucking freak, but like it's not the dev's job to be the best on the ladder. It's to make it the best video game you can make. And part of that is like playing and practicing and trying other things. And when you invite the sweats in, they only sweat. And by having high level players come in, you get their like sort of perspective on the game that's playing the game in a fresher state than you. And also very sharp. Like they're only playing against other high level players. The things that they're going to be doing are going to be optimal. They're going to be doing the correct decision making. They're only like used to playing the game in that way. So you see what their play patterns are like at that sort of level. Should you invite pro players in to test early versions and patches and stuff like that? On one hand, you may get great feedback. On the other hand, you may create like a dichotomy where people feel like they're being left out. So there's probably a balance. For things like new characters, you could probably just invite people to create content and not pro players. I don't personally care or mind that like other creators are playing in tests frequently for other things that I'm not in. I know that some people really, it does bother them if anybody has any kind of early access. Yeah, like the Tokon tweets. I didn't even play the first Tokon beta. Like I was waiting to get invited. I like didn't have time and I didn't even play it on stream. But like there were so many people who were like, I cover every fighting game and they didn't invite me. All these people played the crack for Street Fighter and I didn't get invited to come play the game. Like there's like all that kind of stuff. Like there's a lot of people like that. I totally get it. Like early access to stuff to make content and footage is like a big deal. But if you don't get invited, like it's not the end of the world, man. You're gonna be okay. Have you seen the Street Fighter 6 Season 4 patch? You're talking to me? Absolutely not, because I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist. How could I perceive something that's not real?